Welcome members and everybody to the 77th meeting of the Committee for Finance in the 2022-27 mandate. As always, the committee meeting will be recorded and broadcast both online and throughout Parliament buildings. Usual rules apply in relation to phones. If you're here, agenda item 1 is apologies. We have one apology from Mr. Tennyson. No, we don't. We have no apologies? Yes, we do have an apology from Mr. Tennyson. Don't worry. And we have a couple of members joining us on Zoom. Agenda item 2, declaration of interest. Is anyone of an interest they wish to declare? No? Okay. Agenda item 3, chairperson's business. So we have a joint response from the Chief Secretary to the Treasury from the... I'm going to actually bring in the thing about the terms of reference on this item. Yeah, just because it'll be quicker. So 3.1 is a joint response from the CST and the Secretary of State on the 25-26 reserve claim. The reply indicates that discussions on the scope and implementation of the process for the open book exercise are continuing, but that the outcome of the exercise should support the Executive's efforts to agree a multi-year budget. We hope. It says at point 6, this work will be undertaken jointly between HM Treasury and the Northern Ireland Department of Finance and will provide, for greater understanding of, greater clarity on spending plans of NI departments. The outcome of the exercise should support, as I said, the executive efforts to agree a multi-year budget. It will also inform wider discussions between the UK government and the Northern Ireland executive on the NI executive's multi-year budget. Now, so members, I'm just going to bring in actually something now that came up yesterday because it's pertinent to this, and so to facilitate a discussion, we'll do that. Heather is handing out to you. So that's that. We'll open up to discussion in a second. That was a useful response. Yesterday, in the final stage of the budget bill debate, the Finance Minister indicated that the open book exercise is in progress with an agreed terms of reference that make clear there is no interference in the devolved settlement on the part of the Treasury. The Minister indicated, as in fairness, the Treasury and NIO doing this, that the outcome of the exercise will form part of the Executive's discussion with the Treasury regarding reaching a balanced budget over the next 3 years and how the reserve claim will be dealt with. So, members, I would like to know about the terms of reference, given we've asked repeatedly about the nature of the open book exercise. I wasn't aware there was a term of reference. I think it's important that we know what it is. So if members are content, can we write to the department and ask for the terms of reference? And I'm happy to bring in others for discussion, starting with Steve Aiken.
Yeah, Matthew. Yeah, Chair. I would fully agree with that. I raised on previous questions to the Minister of Finance about whether the way it was written, it seemed strange to me. It seemed as if we couldn't go ahead with the 3-year budget until actually this open book process had been completed. And every time I've read it, it still seems to come out that that's a degree of caveat. So I would fully support actually having sight of the terms of reference on what's been done. And indeed, today I'm just writing to the Minister for Finance to ask him to publish the results as publicly the results as soon as he's finished it. Yeah,
well, I think we've already asked that we would see that or see what, at least get a readout from what has emerged. So I would just reiterate that we do want to see the terms of reference, certainly in time for next week's meeting and before that if possible. I think we should have got them in the first place. Okay, members are content with that?
Yep.
Grand. We'll now go to 3.2, which is the oral statement on the Chancellor's Spring Statement and Forecast. We provided with that statement, but obviously it's we got it last week, so we've already discussed it, and that is the same with the next item, 3.3, which is relates to the Chancellor's Spring Forecast and impact on executive funding. Now, at this stage, I did want to raise the question of other monies which have apparently become available but have been the subject of some discussion, shall we say, in the last day or two around 81 million of annually managed expenditure, which is the discussion in the media and has been the subject of some debate about the status of this 81 million. My understanding is this 81 million was derived from the
Budget.
autumn budget rather than the spring statement. It isn't always automatically clear when AME emerges. We don't always get the detail of AME allocations. I think, first of all, I think it's important to say the Committee for Economy and the Department of Economy apparently has produced a business case, I believe, and they are investigating it. We have a member of the Economy Committee here now who may have something to say on it, but so that's primarily for the Department of Economy and the Committee for Economy to scrutinise. But I do want to understand precisely the status of this 81 million, because I want to understand where it came from, and perhaps if notifications on AME need to get better to this committee and to the Assembly more generally. I would just make a broad statement that it's slightly messy and unhelpful that this has all been aired via public debate rather than clarity from the executive writ large, and indeed obviously it emerged via a written question which you have in front of you now from a former member of this committee, Mr. Brett. But I'll bring in the Deputy Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Just to speak, I also am on the Economy Committee, and since this was announced before Christmas, Philip Brett has been sending a range of questions in the Department for Economy and the Department of Finance, and this one that's just been circulated, he got that, it was over a month ago, it was at the start of February, I think it was. I know when the response just came through on the 2nd of March, I was just checking. So that was actually from John O'Dowd as Finance Minister, which provided the clarity about how much had been set aside, and he understood that DFE officials were working on a business case. So then on Tuesday we had an additional Economy Committee meeting with the Permanent Secretary around budgets, and Philip asked about this. And despite
yesterday's meeting, sorry.
Yesterday. So that was yesterday morning, and the officials didn't seem to have any knowledge or business case prepared for that, despite the understanding of the Finance Minister seemingly being that DFE officials were working on the business case. So I have got notification that there's going to be an additional Emergency Economy Committee meeting on Monday, where we would be hoping to get some more information as to what's happening with regard to this, because obviously it was publicly known whenever UK government announced that there's going to be this extra money with the view to delivering £150 savings per household right across the United Kingdom, and the proportion of that available to Northern Ireland through AME would be £81 million, but because it was AME, the business case needs to come from our devolved department to be able to draw it down, but that hasn't come forward. So where other places will be in a place to maybe roll it forward soon. 26-27 starts in just a few weeks, which is why Philip Brett, as Chair of the Economy Committee, raised it this week to see where it was at. So it is disappointing that there didn't seem to be a proactive action coming from the Department for Economy to access it, but it's very much got the attention now, and as I say, we've got this extra meeting on Monday now of the Economy Committee, and hopefully we'll get a bit more information as to what it means, and people here in Northern Ireland hopefully will be able to see the benefit of that as soon as possible.
Yes, Jerry Hargan and Steve Aiken.
Well, I'd be happy to get clarity, because I think there's been a deliberate messing about with this in terms of what the scheme is actually for and what it can do. And certainly it's given the impression out there that there's all of a sudden £81 million available in the budget to allocate for energy support schemes. And my understanding is that's not the case. This was for a particular scheme that the British government brought forward, and there's an AME consequence to that around electricity customers and the supply. So there's not 81 million sitting in a bank account somewhere that nobody knew about. So I think the clarity around this, and to clear up the deliberate miscommunication, I would welcome that in the coming days.
Okay.
And hopefully there'll be more, maybe even today on it.
Okay.
I'm just looking at the sort of the AQW that came back from John to Philip Brett. Is this money being made available because they've reclassified Nairo?
They've met some of the costs of
there's a proportional cost.
Nairo.
Yeah, because I think we probably need some clarity in that, because Nairo was supposed to be ring fenced, that they couldn't change it. Because if they're changing that to look at, and they're saying it's a comparable offer, I think there's other issues.
Just to be clear, that sounds like a policy issue for the Economy Department and the Economy Committee. So that may be a totally legitimate question, but I think we should focus our efforts on the Finance on the questions that are pertinent to the Department of Finance.
Or maybe I might sort of rejig that one, because again, it's a bit like the FTC question where money's suddenly being reprofiled in a different way. There might be does the Department of Finance think that other areas might be reprofiled because of, this is a substantial reprofiling, 81 million?
Well, I think if we get the information, I think we're not necessarily contradicting one another, but I think we get the information that we are seeking, which is the status of this AME funding. AME is obviously different from DEL, so Deirdre is correct in the sense that it doesn't sit in a bank account. It is drawn down, effectively kind of demand-led funding, like welfare spending. It's not the same thing as it's not in the block grant. However, an amount of funding was available, and we need to understand how or if it can be used. There's some reporting today that it's going to be used. Clearly, the Permanent Secretary of Economy did not seem to know anything about a business case, which the the Minister for Finance referred to the day before in a written answer. That's concerning in itself. It's fairly unedifying to be getting contradictory messages from the top of the executive, counter briefing, when I think people out there simply want to know what support is going to come to them in terms of home energy. So I think if we get the information about the status of this money, how it's going to be drawn down, if it can be drawn down may not be the right term because it's AME, but I think people know what we mean. But we do, because I just think this isn't about the politics, it's just about finding out exactly what the status is of this funding.
Chair, thanks very much. I'm content to wait until we get some information.
We'll get that hopefully ASAP, and I think that is our job as the Finance Committee. I don't want to get into all the specifics of how renewables work.
I think it's just critical but to put out there, this is not an energy support package, and that's where the focus needs to be in terms of what people are being impacted by now. We need to be pushing the British government to come forward in terms of mitigating the doubling of fuel costs, because this scheme is not there to deliver on that. And I think that's the clear message that the public need to know, because I agree this has caused confusion. And I don't believe that that's in the benefit of people who are facing double the energy bills than they did last week. So I think it is important that we get the clarity as soon as possible, and that actually to rectify the misinformation that's out there.
Well, confusion is definitely not in anyone's interest. I think we agree with that. However, I think it would have been helpful, speaking from my perspective, I think it would have helpful to have clarity from an executive minister on via statement, and we haven't had that in the Assembly thus far. To be clear, Brian Kingston.
Yeah, equally, if that money is available and can be drawn down, the sooner it's drawn down, the better. No matter what way it became available, now is the time of need. While, and as we all know, Northern Ireland's been impacted greater than other regions of the UK because of the over-reliance on oil here and doubling of prices and profiteering that's happening from that. So all the support we can give to the public. Because sometimes we see these schemes can take up to a year to roll out. So we need to emphasise the urgency.
So it's important to say that, the renewables obligation is separate. Like you couldn't simply give someone a voucher for their oil costs because of it's a different thing. So we do have to be clear about the classification of this spending. Okay. However, it's
coming up energy bills in England.
Well, exactly. That's why I want to get to the bottom of it, Brian, and that's what we're doing. I think it's really important that we do get to the bottom of it. Because I think people out there have frankly seen some of the spat at the top of the executive between the two main parties, and it hasn't been particularly edifying. So I think our job as the committee is to find out what the status of this money is and how it's going to be used to support people. I think we're agreed on that, Deputy Chair.
Yeah, and just crystal clear, there clearly is £81 million resource AME set aside, and that's what John O'Dowd, the Finance Minister, said in his written response, so it's not misinformation that there is money set aside. So I agree with you, Chair, let's get some clarity on how we get that money into Northern Ireland. Okay,
good. I think we're all agreed that we're going to get that information ASAP from the Department, and that will be useful, and hopefully it will shed more light than heat, no pun intended, or puns intended. Right, okay. Multiple puns intended. Right. 3.4 is from the House of Commons Library, and it's a forecast of the spring statement, which is always a useful background for people. 3.5 is Hansard from the NI Affairs Committee.
Go back and get agreement for that, Chair.
Yes, of course, apologies. Members, just on the spring forecast, the analysis that we got, I'm just going to hop back to 3.3 for a second. The analysis from the department, the 3.3, are we content to send that to the statutory committees and the audit committee? Yep, I should. Yep. So then hop back to 3.5. Hansard from the NI Affairs Committee. We had discussed what was said by the Secretary of State in that evidence session, and that is included there for people's information. 3.6 is response to the Executive Office Committee on the Windsor Framework and EU issues. We noted correspondence last week around what information this committee has carried out in relation to the Windsor Framework and wider EU issues. Responses there. Are members content to forward that to the Executive Office Committee?
Yep.
Yes, okay. Economy Committee, 3.7 is the impact on business rates. At page 87 of the meeting pack, the Economy Committee has written to this committee, following its oral evidence session at the NI Hotels Federation, Food to Go, Hospitality Ulster and Retail NI in respect of the economic impact of business rates. The Economy Committee are seeking to undertake a joint evidence session with this committee on the issue with a view to considering how support can be better targeted. Now, members, I'll give you my view on this, is that I would be open and supportive of doing a joint evidence session on rates, but I think it should be with a specific focus on, if we are to do this, on any potential changes to, first of all, revaluation, and then secondly, the strategic work going on around rates. I don't want for us to simply be doing perfectly reasonable for specific sectors to contact us and ask for a hearing. I think we've engaged with all these organisations quite rightly on the subject of rates on multiple occasions recently. I would be keen to for clerks to have a specific think about best value and a focused joint session on revaluation and how people think revaluation could change or should change. We don't know what the next steps are yet, number one, and number two, any other strategic changes they want to the rate system. So my view, members, is I'm open to this idea, but I don't want it to simply be a kind of open source chat about rates. Not that there's not value in that, but I want us to focus and best use our time. So I'm happy to, my view would be that we could ask clerks to work with clerks of the Economy Committee to design what that might look like, and then we might take us some time to do it. But I don't just want to have a chat about rates. Not that that's not important, but we've done a lot of that. I want us to have a focused evidence session on how organisations think a revaluation could look, or how the rating model should look, and perhaps provide us with papers in advance so that they can be tested and questioned about that. And I think it would be a reasonable thing for us to do. But I'll bring in members for their views. Deputy Chair, first of all.
Thank you, Chair. And just I was at this particular meeting of the Economy Committee, and it wasn't calling for something now in the urgent. It was following the evidence session. It was well beyond reval. It was all of the issues that were discussed there, the different issues around the businesses here, VAT differential, like lots of different things. And we just agreed that if we were going to be looking at it further, especially as the Minister's looking at a strategic review of rates, if we were taking evidence again, it would actually be worthwhile having it as a joint session with Economy and Finance as it progresses. It wasn't like an additional session that was being requested now for any purpose. It would just, me having sat on both committees, I felt they had a very similar session twice. So
yes.
I was kind of proposing that whenever something comes forward, whenever a consultation or proposal comes forward, we actually work together to take those sessions maybe a bit more joint. So it wasn't really a request, as you say, for an extra meeting or something right now just to talk about it. It would be as it progresses that I think it would be useful.
I think we should maybe hold that then as a potential. I think certainly in rates it is worth doing that, but I'm conscious about us not filling people's diaries with meetings that don't have a specific focused output. But I do think it's worth us, because we are going to be looking at rates, revaluation in the next steps, and also whenever we may or may not get more detail in the strategic roadmap cycle, whatever it is now this week, that we hear from these entities. But I want to do that in a focused way, and perhaps in advance, I say back to the Economy Committee, that we ask them for papers, so they say what but I'm bringing others, I think. Did you want to come in, Gemma? No?
No, just nodding vigorously.
Just nodding, okay. Happy enough? Are members happy enough then that we have that as a potential action in the months ahead whenever we come back to looking at rates, but that we ask in the background the clerk team to go away and think what a focused evidence session would look like, rather than just a general chat about rates? Are people content with that? Okay. Deirdre, did you want to go?
As long as it just fits with, I suppose, the work that even the department's doing, in terms of just timetables around all of this, rather than trying to pick an issue maybe that's not even being looked at in this mandate. So.
Well, hang on. The Finance Minister does have to come back and tell us what he's doing next on revaluation. So I think there is a question there, and he said he's looking at so I think that is an obvious rationale and reason, we have an open request that is with Dallo to keep us posted on what happens next with revaluation. So I think there is a clear thing that has to happen in this mandate, which is at some point the Finance Minister has to say if there's going to be, what happens now with reval. So that would be an obvious one. But yes, I don't just want to do, as I said, I don't just want to do a general chit-chat. Okay, happy enough, members. We'll move on then to 3.8, which is the Local Growth Fund, and that is at 88. So, excuse me, sorry. Page up. We agreed to write to the NIO, but the NIO have just sent it on to MHCLG to respond. Sorry.
So, Chair, yeah, it's been transferred on. That message was the first one we got. We got a much nicer one subsequent to that indicated it had been transferred. So
we got a nice letterhead saying,
this has been properly transferred. That's
just the email
commonplace within Cabinet. What it indicates is, I suppose, on the back of what the Secretary of State said at the NI Affairs Committee last week, that decisions around the hard core of how the fund is split are MHCLG. He has no kind of real influence there. So that's why it's going back to that. So that's where we'll focus our attentions now.
Okay. Fair enough, members. The item 3.9 is Bank of Ireland's request to brief. It's at page 89 of the meeting pack. The Bank of Ireland has asked to brief the committee on fraud and security trends. This would be a closed session. Members, are we... So, this I am sort of, given they have specifically asked to brief us, and we have done some work on financial crime, and I should just say, actually, just for the purposes of declaring, I have a relative who works for a bank in a similar area, so I'll just put that down as an interest. That we should, I'm content that we arrange this briefing at a time when the committee's schedule allows. Not to say it's not a priority, but not
Just to be post bills.
Yes, but once we get other more pressing things out of the way, and our diary, believe it or not, is slightly lighter, so it's not a huge urgent priority, but I am content to take this meeting as long as other members are, given we've touched on related matters. Bring it, Deputy Chair.
Yeah, would it be more appropriate for us to ask the department for a briefing on their work and policy space on banking fraud and security in the first instance before going to banks as the primary presenter?
Well, potentially. I mean, I suppose they will say they don't have one because, in fairness, they have taken an interest in things like financial inclusion and provision of financial services, as we have, in fairness, encouraged them to. I think that probably hasn't really ventured into things like financial crime because that is more specifically in the detail. I suppose perhaps if before we agree to this, perhaps we can ask the department if they have a specific interest. I mean, it may well.
Just my point would be, we're scrutinising the Department of Finance here in Northern Ireland, so I think that we need to understand what they have in place before to be informed to have any external engagement.
Yeah, I mean,
because
look,
I don't know what the department's positions are around.
I doubt they have one. Is the short answer because it's not their policy area, and maybe to be honest, that means that we're content to say to Bank of Ireland that it's not a high priority for us because we're not doing. We have an interest in the provision of financial services because we had taken a view that there was a gap in policy scrutiny, and I think there was, and I think that was borne out by our work. But in relation to fraud and security, it's not necessarily. Now, having said that, fraud is a huge issue for all of our constituents because scamming and all these things are very important. But we were sort of always clear when we did our financial services thing that we were kind of keeping it relatively focused on the provision of financial services rather than ancillary issues. But we've had this invite, so we thought it should open up to the committee. Brian Kingston.
Yep. Well, I'm also on Justice Committee and I'd see relevance for Justice Committee. I mean, I welcome if Bank of Ireland are wanting to highlight this issue. Yes. They're offering it as a closed session, perhaps because they want to go into some individual examples, but it's also important information, to put out into the public arena. So, whether or not this committee wants to take it, but wearing my other hat as a member of Justice Committee, I'd certainly see value in hearing this. This is as they state in their letter, this is how financial fraud is now happening. It's through online activities, and approaching people directly, And the banks, I suppose, can suffer a consequence themselves as a business.
My view is that this will probably, because financial crime does not sit neatly with any devolved department, it won't sit neatly with any statutory committee in the Assembly. We have taken an interest in financial services. If members are content, can I suggest we ask the department to give us an overview of any interest or involvement they've had, and after that we can take a decision about scheduling a short closed session briefing at some point in the future this year. Harry Harvey.
Well, just a comment to say, Chair, that the more information we have on this to combat it, the better. It's, so important. So
totally agreed. The only thing I'll ever say, is we also. I have a responsibility to try and manage our workload a wee bit, purely because it's not totally core to what we do. Anyone else wish to come in? Happy enough that we get.
Concur with that. Yeah, it's the balance between our work and what we do have responsibility in terms of scrutinising, and the fact that these powers are reserved matters as well. It's not to say they're not issued, but is this the most appropriate place to do it?
Yeah, I think there's an important issue. So, can I suggest that we will get from the committee? I'll bring you in a second, Brian. We will get from the department its view on, if it has taken a view on this, whether it's come up, and at that point we will have it open to us later in the year to schedule a briefing. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, and I would suggest it's also opened up to the Justice Committee, and whether that means like an extra session on a Tuesday lunchtime or whatever, that's not.
Yeah, that might well be it. Yeah, I'm happy to. I'm happy for us to share it with the Justice and, for example, the Justice and Economy committees for information and see if they've said they want to brief us in closed session rather than those committees. I don't want to start a whole boondoggle here. So we'll just get a response back from the department and then see where we go from there. Okay, grand. Yes.
A closed session briefing is effectively an informal briefing.
A closed session briefing is an informal briefing, exactly. Okay, members happy enough, so we're going to hear from the department if they have anything, and then we can make a decision on scheduling later in the year. ABI, the Association of British Insurers, have come back to us at a recent meeting. Members discussed whether or not the ABI was involved in discussions with the Department of Infrastructure about graduated driver licensing, an area linked to our banking inquiry, a little bit like the last issue. In correspondence with the clerk, the ABI has confirmed that they are in discussions with the Minister and her officials and have been invited to give evidence to the Infrastructure Committee later this month. And they welcome the announcement, so I welcome that, and hopefully they can tell the Infrastructure Committee that premiums are going to come down. But anyway, that'll be good news for the Infrastructure Committee. Again, always the bridesmaid in the Finance Committee. We have to do the techie stuff and other people get the glamour. Right, okay, such is life. 3.11 is a joint informal meeting that we had with the Communities Committee re the Bytes Texture pilot. Members, this informal meeting took place yesterday with both committee chairs. The Texture report was in previous packs. It is effectively a scheme which is designed to help the community and voluntary sector improve their cyber capabilities and their digital capacity more generally. And they wanted us to discuss as committees ways in which the community and voluntary sector can be supported to take this pilot up. So, members, can I ask that if members, this is an interesting pilot, and I think it does ask some questions which are pertinent to the community and voluntary sector. There is a relevance to the work of both our committee and the Communities Committee. So if members are content, can we ask the clerks go away and just look at ways in which we might raise or discuss these issues. I think you were there, Brian, at yesterday's session.
Arrived late and left early, but still I was there for part of it.
Yeah. If members are content with that, I think it's a useful potential area. I'm not suggesting we need another full evidence session, but it may be that we, as committees, jointly write to our respective departments and ask what they're doing to support. They're not particularly asking for additional money being spent on it, just for better coordination around how the community and voluntary sector are trained in cyber. So if members are content that the clerks will go away. And
maybe the other point to raise was the fact that they thought there was already funding around that could potentially be accessed from the lottery fund and some other places too. Which is always worth exploring.
Okay.
Groups could build it into their funding applications rather than being directly funded by a department.
Okay, so our clerks will liaise on that. Thank you. We've already dealt with item 3.12, 3.13, final stage of the budget bill 2026, which we have already talked about because it relates to the terms of reference, and we've already asked for that. And the budget bill has had its final reading and will then now get royal assent. It is the budget bill, obviously, not the budget itself. Okay, now we're going to move on to agenda item 4, which is draft minutes of the meeting held on the 4th of March 2026. Does anybody have any amendments or comments? If not, I'll sign those minutes. Agenda item 5, matters arising. Now we're going to start with Dallow extracts, Dallow readout responses. 5.2 and 5.3 relates to the Victoria Hall disposal. The department has provided a supplementary response to the committee regarding the disposal of Victoria Hall. Members had expressed their disappointment with the level of detail previously provided. The original response can be found at page 1110 of the meeting pack, and the supplementary detail begins at page 1112. The detail, this includes detail on the rationale for the price differential, an apology for the gap in the provision of property sales and an apology for the gap in the provision of property sales information to the committee. The department indicates that it will ensure that sales completion reports are compiled on the completion of future sales and provided to the committee as soon as possible. An oral briefing on the Next Estate strategy, helpfully enough, is scheduled for just over 2 months' time on the 27th of May. I'll bring in the Deputy Chair in 1 second, just to say that I think this was worth asking more information on, and I think obviously we always have to balance becoming detailed auditors with looking at high-level expenditure control and good governance, and clearly it was right for us to press for these issues. But I'll bring in the Deputy Chair, who obviously was...
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm just increasingly concerned around this. I know we'll have the briefing in for the estate strategy, but it's just this pattern with regard to disposals. We did raise it, and we were very clear that we wanted to be kept up to date with this, and the way that this one came up was because I had asked questions about a £2 million downward valuation in the January in-year technical exercise. So the fact that Victoria Hall had gone from 3.5 million down to 1.5, so it's significant in terms of the proportion of the value that's gone down in it. But the fact that it came up that way, and would we have known if we hadn't saw that exercise and asked the questions around it. And then carrying on to the next one, which is Clarence Court, that has gone from an initial valuation of £15 million to a final sale settlement of 6.5 million, and it's in the press today, the reuse of this very valuable property asset. So there does definitely seem to be a pattern here, and I think that 27th of May seems far away. Hopefully, there's no big movements in the meantime. But around the process of, are they not setting the values right at the start? Why is there such significant reductions? Because there's millions of pounds and huge percentages in terms of reductions of the valuation after what is actually being received, and in terms of, you talk about balance and oversight with audit in the detail. But this is one of the biggest things we have in terms of the Department of Finance. It's the ownership and management of the civil service estate, and where they're getting rid of these significant properties, we have a responsibility to make sure they're getting value for money and that they're going to the best place and the processes are being followed. So I just have a lot of concerns about both of those and that theme, and we did see other ones last year where similar patterns were being followed. So I think it's a really important briefing, and I wonder, can we write in the meantime to say, ask them, is there anything else that they're expecting to see disposed being live in the next couple of months before we have that briefing? Because I just have genuine concerns over this, because this is very much the strategy. They're reducing the footprint, they're reducing the scale of of the civil service estate, but it needs to be for the best value for public funding.
Does anybody else wish to come in? This item is sort of the item will just draw in the Clarence Court, which is the next item now, because it further what the Deputy Chair just said. It there's another significant differential in value. So the sale completed in February, just nearly a month ago. 16th of February, sold for 6.5 million. The original was 15, yeah. The original, go right back, yeah. Yes, the LPS Red Book valuation in October 2023 was £15 million. It's sold for less than half of that. So, I think Deputy Chair's right. There is a really weird and striking thing that's happening here, which is, and it's a fair point about. I mean, I just simply made the point that we can't audit it in a kind of everything that happens. You're right; these are big disposals, and these are material sums of money, given that things that cost this amount of money aren't happening, and we've just delayed hospital car parking because it costs 7 million a year, free hospital parking. That's more than 7 million a year, and it was capital, not resource. But it's pretty striking, the difference between, and that's a 2.5 year period in which I don't think anyone could say realistically that the commercial property market collapsed by more than half in central Belfast. So I think we do need to understand structurally what is happening here. Is there a structural overvaluation of assets, or is there aggressive disposal? It may not be either of those things, but certainly something's happening. The valuations are just strikingly, bizarrely differential, and I think we need to. We'll hopefully find out in the 27th of May. Steve Aiken.
Chair, you'll recollect from our previous committee when we sat on, there were similar issues with property being sold at much significant discount.
Yes.
And the worrying thing is, of course, the LPS Red Book is what revals are based on. It's also the property values. So how can we go and argue about reval and you need to pay this because it's based on your property value and return and the rest of it, at the same time as the civil service basically knocks off half of it? And the concern I have is, that's between the two of them. That could have been sort of provision of medical services or quite a few other bits and pieces. So I think we probably need somebody to come and explain to us why these properties have been sold at such a significant discount.
Yeah. Well, it may not be that their discount might not be the right word, technically, in the sense that but it is a striking variance. Deirdre Hargey?
Yeah, no, I think, it doesn't hurt to get the additional information, but I think particularly, I know with the Clarence Court one, there has been an issue with city centre office accommodation that they can't populate it. This is an issue even in the gasworks, which is round the corner, in property that DFC once had, and the private developer that owns that can't fill it and is actually looking to change of use to housing. But again, that presents a challenge because of just the physical layout of the buildings. And I know this Clarence Court one, it was a crap design to begin with, and it probably is a difficult building to repurpose, even as an office block, let alone something else. So it'll just be good. We kind of need to look at those wider issues, because that is an issue within Belfast, certainly in terms of even trying to repurpose into housing-led regeneration. And it's just not cost effective with some of the older buildings, even though this is a relatively new building. So I think it would be useful to kind of get all of that information and just to see why there is such a significant difference.
Yeah, and it may well be that the kind of, as you say, the Grade A office space has, post-COVID, we know, is just less. The demand, yes, that is true, the demand isn't there in the same way, and that may be part of it, but I suppose that then begs the question of whether there's other book valuations of the civil service estate which are structurally too high at the minute, and there needs to be a look at that. But we can ask all those questions. Well, we should start thinking about them in advance and then have a session in May. Yeah.
But speculative development doesn't work either. That's the other bit of it.
Well, there are lots of other questions about property speculation. But anyway, okay, we will have an evidence session in May. Okay, members, right? So we have dealt with that LCM 5.5 is the LCM on the Cybersecurity and Resilience Bill. It's page 118. Departmental officials have indicated their agreement to provide the committee with updates and progress in relation to the bill and associated LCM when these become available. Seems to be taking a long time.
It has stalled a bit, Chair. That's, I think, just the complexity of the detail, the back and forth there is. So the department has indicated that as soon as they get news, they will let the committee know. Otherwise, we are ready to go. But it has just taken a lot of time.
Okay. Good. 5.6 is Dallow. We're moving on to Dallow extract and responses from the meeting on the 18th of February. At 5.7, members had queried the time lag in the publication of SUPB accounts. The department has indicated both accounts are being audited by the Northern Ireland Audit Office and require certification in both jurisdictions, which is commonplace. Yes, Deputy Chair.
Can we ask for a date on that? This happens every time. We're now, like, they were operating a calendar year, still haven't got a date to close 2024, and really they should be closing the accounts of the 2025 around now, and the accounts go simultaneous with the North South Ministerial Council approving the business plan for the year in which they're spending, so effectively they're 2 years out of
They need to be
sync.
audited by North and South simultaneously,
Yeah.
so it's a double, like it adds, process, it's an
weird
additional
financial,
process, and the,
It should still be done within 6 months,
yeah.
year end.
Okay, although it is a habitual complaint which comes up every year. But anyway, 5.8 relates to match funding. And 121, the department's provided the committee with information tables on match funding previously provided by the executive for the European, Social Fund and the European, the ERDF, the European Regional Development Fund. I did know that. Clark forgot to fill it in for me. But anyway, so I'm just going to, so members, that indicates the amount that was there and was previously spent, which we had asked for. I'm just going to run through it. So you will see the amount that was match funded, and it's no longer match funded. What they don't tell us in response to COVID, I'm not totally sure what that means. Anyway, there's a phrase, yes. So I mean, the upshot is, members, and the purpose of flagging this is so we can see in these tables the amount that was spent previously by the executive writ large. Yeah, on yes, yeah, that on on match funding. It declines from financial year 16-17. It was 20 odd million at the beginning of 16-17, and then gradually declines. It's not exactly made clear from the response, but I think the question that I mean, because almost a yes or no answer, was this money just sucked up into other generic pressures because there was effectively a saving that came to the executive because they no longer had to match fund. They don't give us a specific answer. I think the answer is yes. We can take it as read that yes, it was just sucked up into other pressures. It has not gone on what it went on before. But there is a nationalised, I think, means the UK wide. No, they must have not funded.
Just might be worth getting clarification.
So there's
I don't understand what that means.
Yeah, there's an asterisk there on for financial year 2021 where it says, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, DFE secured funding from the Economic Recovery Action Plan to nationalise ESF and match funding in 2020-21. That may be one for a written question rather than a reader. I think that probably relates to just getting money from London post pandemic. Okay, members, that's to note, unless anybody particularly wants to come in on it. 5.9, City and Growth Deals. Members, page 123 of the meeting pack. The department has provided a further update on the Mid-South West governance arrangements and the Mourne Mountains Gateway alternative proposal. The alternative proposal has been approved by BRCD, Executive Board, and will be presented next week on Thursday, the 19th of March. So, members, does anybody wish to come in? Does the Deputy Chair wish to come in on that? Okay. It doesn't actually say what the alternative is, does it?
Until, Chair, that's fully through its processes, that won't be.
They won't tell us?
No.
Okay.
It comes under the generic title of Gateway Project.
Fair enough. Okay, well, they do have an alternative then. So that's to note. Okay.
Disputably.
I didn't hear that, sorry.
Find more, I'd say.
Okay. 5.12 and 5.13 is related, and it's in the table pack, and it relates to cost increases. At the meeting on the 11th of February, members noted cost increases affecting some city and growth deals. The department has outlined how these increases are being managed with additional deal partner contributions and adjustments to project scope. So, members, this is page 4 of the table pack. I'm just going to open it up. So there are things worth putting on the record. There are a few things here where there are shortfalls. I'm just going to sort of put them on the record. So the Coleraine Leisure and Wellbeing Centre has a funding shortfall of 20 million, which the council has agreed to mitigate through its own resources. It's a rather large amount of money for Causeway Coast and Glens, but I don't know if that's over several years. That's one where that's an additional deal partner contribution that's coming out of from Causeway Coast and Glens. In relation to where deals or delivery partners are finding extra money, the I4C Innovation and Clean Tech Centre, which is, I presume that's Belfast City, BRCD one. There's a £5.5 million cost increase. Something called Value Engineering reduced this to 3.5 million, which Mid and East Antrim Borough Council will mitigate by increasing its contribution directly, so more money from them. Destination Royal Hills for this project experienced an inflationary cost increase of 700,000, and the council secured a funding partner, doesn't say who, to mitigate the additional requirement. The Gobbins, which is obviously on the Antrim coast, an additional 8 million cost increase was identified at REBA Stage 2, with Mid and East Antrim Council undertaking a comprehensive value engineering exercise to reduce it to £2 million. These value engineering exercises are a little bit like the old yada 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 of pressures, where you just sort of
Pick your consultant,
something being
pick your
managed down, managing pressures down, and then we don't find out what the detail. Anyway, these approaches demonstrate how the deal and delivery partners are actively managing financial pressures, it says. But anyway, I just thought it was worth putting those on the record, and it's useful to keep an eye on them. 5.10, Department of Finance, Future Public Procurement Economic Security Bill. That's at page 125. The Department has provided the economy with a further written briefing on a future Public Procurement Economic Security Bill. This includes an assessment of the implications of reform proposals, in particular 3 reforms which would be beneficial to public bodies and suppliers here. Approval in principle has been given for Northern Ireland to be included in the 3 reforms. The earliest stage the legislation could be expected is autumn 2027. CPD officials continue to engage with the Cabinet Office, so this would be an LCM at the earliest 18 months in a new mandate. So 5.11 from the Department of Finance, an update on dormant assets NI funding, that's at 136. The Department has provided an update on dormant assets funding and has provided copies of the Strategic Action Plan for Dormant Assets and the Annual Report and Accounts for 24-25, both of which are required to be laid in the Assembly. The Committee was also sent these 2 reports by the Assembly Business Office, that's to note, unless anybody wishes to come in. No? Okay, enough. 5.14 and 5.15, Dal will read out response from the LPS briefing the 20th of January. That's at page 8 of the table pack. The Department has provided a response following the LPS rates briefing on the 20th of January and provided additional information on the current rates reval position. On the current rates reval position, stakeholder activity, timescales and potential for change. So mostly this is stuff we knew before, so it's just to note, members. The LCM tracker from the Department is at page 10 of the table pack. As we just discussed, there may be another one in 18 months' time, but there's nothing particularly new or startling there. Now we're going to go to agenda item 6, which is SL1, the Valuation, Telecommunications, Natural Gas and Water Amendment Regulations, Northern Ireland 2026. The SL1 today's pack is subject to the new process, which is very popular and began on the 5th of January 2026. Members, are we agreed, first of all, to publish the SL1, the draft SR, and any relevant documents from the Department on the Committee website? Yes.
Agreed.
Now, and also any matters, and also from the Department, any matters raised during the SL1 stage, including in the survey, further that we will publish any responses received to the survey after they've been considered. Are people content with that? Content? Okay. So we're not going to make a decision today on this, but we're just having an initial discussion about it. At page 345 of the meeting pack, there's a clerk's memo on the Valuation, Telecommunications, Natural Gas and Water Amendment Regs, Northern Ireland 2026 at page 345, an SL1 letter from the Department at page 346, a draft statutory rule at page 350, an explanatory memorandum at 353. Members, the purpose of the proposed statutory rule is to update the existing regulations by replacing or revising the names of gas transportation companies listed in the schedule of Valuations, Telecommunications, Natural Gas and Water Regulations, Northern Ireland 2010. Members will recall a similar SL1 last year. The aim of this scheme is to update the name of one of the current companies operating gas transportation networks. Okay, so members, are we content that, members, are we agreed to note receipt of the SL1 and the fact that we will formally consider the SL1 on the 15th of April?
Great.
Yes, okay. And are we content that, based on what we've heard, i.e. the relatively minor updating of a name of a company, that we are content to not get an oral briefing on that, yes? I presume people are content that we... Yeah. Okay. Agenda item 7. Administrative and Financial Provisions Bill. We're going to do a final consideration of the report. Members are agreed that Hansard should record this, yes? I'm going to refer you to the following papers. Page 356, the AFP Bill. 356 is the draft report. 405 is the clause-by-clause table on the bill. The Hansard transcript of the oral evidence session on 25th February is at page 464. A copy of the bill itself is at page 471, and a copy of the explanatory and financial memorandum pardon me, is at page 491. So members, the draft committee report has been amended since last week's meeting to include comments made during excuse me, those deliberations. Now, at page 356, which is the start of the report, you will see the bill. There is, not the bill, excuse me, the draft copy of the report. Just to say, formatting errors, typographical errors will be amended and corrected before, so don't get out your spotter's badge, and pedants will not be rewarded in this session. Right?
We pass these on to comms, who do a further accessibility formatting as well. So this isn't necessarily how it'll actually look in the end, because they have to do an accessibility audit, if you like, of it. We've done what we can with that, and they will also do a further search for, as you say, errors. We'll do that as well ourselves before we go for final publication. There'll be a lot of eyes on it, but it's not always a guarantee, Chair.
Okay, so members, now we're going to go through formal clause by clause. First of all, I'm going to go through each section as we have done before with previous bills. I'll go through it and ask members if they are content. That is obviously the opportunity to say either that you have a change that you would like to see made, or that you are content, or that you are not content. And if members are not content, they can obviously indicate they're not content. If we need to, on any particular part of the committee report, we can, if we have to, I hope it won't be necessary, we can divide on it, but we are also obviously able, including via the Hansard of this report, to indicate whether there's any dissent or that any member doesn't endorse a particular position. So we can that can be reflected in the Hansard and will be reflected in the Hansard, because Hansard are recording this session. Deputy Chair.
Yeah, I just wanted to raise it before we're going through the report. It was kind of my understanding, I had contacted the clerk about this, on the travel concession passes. The move to have that become a draft affirmative clause was agreed by the DFI officials, that it should be brought forward either by DFI or the Department of Finance as an amendment, but I haven't seen it come through yet, and I'm just a bit concerned, where is this amendment, because I feel quite strongly that we do need that amendment, that whenever any move will be made to bring in any sort of consideration of this, that it be brought to the Assembly floor so that members all have the chance to speak on the issue of charging on travel concession passes. So as it sits at the minute, it's being brought in this with no opportunity for members to vote. So we have been consistent in raising throughout that we're not happy with it, and it was my understanding an amendment was to be brought forward, and I haven't seen it yet. So just getting this late in the day, I'm a bit concerned where it's at.
Just to say, the I suppose a couple of things. One, the bill report makes clear that the committee's view is it should be draft affirmative. I think about Saturday. So that's reflected already in the report. I share with you the frustration that we haven't seen it yet. I would say it would be open to us to sign off the content of this report, which is clear that we want to see this in draft affirmative as an amendment. Ask through the course of today for an urgent update from the department on the text of this amendment, and say that the committee's clear view is that there should be an amendment to that effect, and that we will be saying that, if for example we got to if consideration stage was scheduled and there had not been the production of this amendment, I think, well, certainly I think as a committee we would probably have to look to draft our own amendment, and because I think that's the view of the committee.
Sure, we would
Yeah.
still have time to do that. I'm just concerned. with the
Yeah, I think we would.
timescale in
Yeah,
terms of this. Yeah, okay.
I think we would, and I think we should. My view as chairs, we would certainly. We have arrived at a view that, and we've unpacked and sort of clarified the purpose of clause 17. It's not for making people who get smart passes pay for their journeys now. It's for administrative costs relating to it.
108 deals with that, if members want to look at it.
Okay, I'm told. Of course, I knew that anyway, but I'm just reminded.
memorised all those
I'm reminded rather than told that paragraph 108 of the draft report, which is at page, if my thumb can scroll fast enough. Paragraph 108 is at page 394 of your pack, and it reads: the Committee for Infrastructure formally stated its preference for the affirmative resolution procedure, and the Finance Committee, i.e. this is for clause 17, and the Finance Committee pressed the Department of Infrastructure on this point. In response, it agreed to. That's the Department of Infrastructure who came and gave us evidence in person here a month or two ago. In response, it agreed to move the affirmative resolution procedure for the fee-setting regulations, recognising the need for greater transparency and Assembly scrutiny. So I think this is an opportunity now for us to remind the Department for Infrastructure that they have made us this promise that they will introduce this amendment. Can I suggest, notwithstanding the fact that we're now going to go back and do formal clause by clause, that we say to the department, we would like to see the text of this amendment by, well, as soon as possible, certainly by our next meeting, and in parallel, we say to the bill clerk, should they not be able to provide it, either by design or the fact they didn't quite get the message, we will need to move quickly to develop our own committee amendment, and if necessary, we'll have an additional committee session to agree the text of that amendment ahead of consideration stage. Are members content with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I presume the Department of Infrastructure aren't listening to this session, hopefully our Dallow is and can pass it on to them.
Chair, I think when we had the officials up, their understanding was that they would correspond with DOF, and ultimately the DOF minister will move any amendments, but we'll just seek clarification from DOF as to whether that's happened or not, and see if we can get a set of words for it.
Yeah, I mean, rather they do it, by the way, I should just say, like, they did promises, they do it, we have enough to do. I don't want us to have to do it and schedule an extra meeting just because they haven't done the thing they said they were going to do. So, like, this isn't us offering to do it for them, this is us saying, where's the thing you promised us? Okay, members, so we're just going to go, what have I done? I didn't mean to open up that. But in any case, I've opened up some news story rather than... Okay, we're going to go back now.
This is restart.
No, it's not the restart, no.
Don't tempt fate, but stay.
No, don't. Okay, right. We're going to go back, right, members, now to which begins at the page 356 of the pack. We're going to go to the draft committee report, and we're going to start with title page, contents, title page, content page, powers, membership, and list of acronyms and abbreviations. Members, are you content with the title page, contents page, committee powers, and membership pages, and content that they stand part of the report? Content? Okay. Executive summary. So members, we'll go to the executive summary, which is paragraphs 1 to 13. Are members content that the executive summary, paragraphs 1 to 13, stand part of the report? Content?
Content.
Okay. Introduction section, page 14 to 16. Are members content that the introduction section at paragraphs 14 to 16 stand part of the report?
Yeah.
Okay. Committee approach section.
Apologies, Chair, my computer's just gone dead.
It'll be the restart.
Yeah.
Chair, yeah.
Crack on, it's okay.
Fine. Committee approach section, are members content that the committee approach section, paragraph 17 and 19 stand part of the report? Right. Yes, content?
Content,
Yeah.
yep.
Consideration of the bill, are members, that's paragraphs 30 to 36. Are members content that the consideration of the bill section, paragraphs 30 to 36 stand part of the report? Content?
Content.
Clause by clause consideration of the bill section. Are members content that the clause by clause consideration of the bill section at page 37 to 128 stand part of the bill? Content? Okay. Clause by clause scrutiny of the bill. Are members content that the clause by clause scrutiny bill of the clause by clause scrutiny of the bill section of the report Paragraphs 129 to 152 stand part of the report. Content? Appendices. So members, that starts at page 1 at 403 of the meeting pack. We're going to update them with today's minutes of proceedings and the evidence, and the minutes of evidence, including all what we're discussing now. Are members content that the appendices stand part of the report?
Intent?
Okay. Now I'm finally going to put the question that the report on the Administrative and Financial Provisions Bill be the 9th report for the Committee for Finance. Are we content?
Intent?
Okay, good. Thank you. So, members, I assume everyone has agreed that this will now be laid in the Business Office and published on the committee website, and copy the report to the Minister for Finance in advance of consideration stage of the bill. Are we content with that? Yes? Okay. Agenda item 8.
To what page are you up to now? Sorry.
Sorry, we're moving on to page 508 of the meeting pack, is the Fiscal Council Bill.
I got it.
Okay, so we're now going on to the Northern Ireland Fiscal Council Bill, members. So we are now first of all doing informal clause by clause, and then
Chair, we need to go into close. Well, sorry, you keep going.
we'll go into. I'm just going to run through what's in the pack, and then it's all there from page 508 onwards. The clerk's memo, followed by an alternative amendment, which we've discussed, which is page 512. A response from the department regarding the committee's deliberations, which is at page 513 of the bill. Clause by clause table at page 590. A copy of the bill itself at 681. Copy of the EFM at page 701. Copy of the draft committee report at page 12 of the tabled pack. Correspondence from the department regarding amendments to the explanatory and financial memorandum at page 65. A copy of the amended explanatory and financial memorandum at page 66. A copy of the EFM, a clean version. Is that the clean version with?
So that's a clean version without the track changes. One has track changes.
Okay,
so you
fine.
can see what the department has done.
Okay, excellent. That's helpful. Is the track changes one at earlier on, the earlier version now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. And a notice of amendments at page 82 of the table pack, which we don't need to discuss today, but it's there for people information. So now, members, content that we go into closed session, and then we'll go into formal clause by clause and open, but we'll do closed session first. Members, are content we go into closed? Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead, Marion.
Senate Chamber. Sound. 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 Senate Chamber. Sound.
So members, we're going to do formal clause by clause now. Members have the opportunity to formally determine and set out their position on each of the proposed bill clauses. If required, on any of the clauses in which there is disagreement, we will divide as necessary. All decisions taken today will be final in terms of the committee. Now, if the committee is not content with the clause, the committee can register its formal opposition to the question that the clause stand part of the bill. This, yes, members are content that Hansard, I assume, record this, yeah. This would ensure the clause in its entirety is debated at consideration stage. Advise members that it is anticipated that the committee will conclude all formal deliberations at today's meeting and give initial consideration to the bill report, time permitting. We'll probably pass that to next week, yes. Members, we're now going to formally proceed through the clauses of the bill and put the questions formally. If there's no consensus on the questions, I will ask members to show through a vote of hands, and the clerk will confirm the result of each vote. Probably worth just saying for the members may want to either make specific comments on specific clauses without registering full dissent. That can be done and it'll be recorded in the bill report, or you can wait until we do formal clause by clause and then formal signing off the bill. So you can include comments without registering formal opposition. We may well have divisions, but if I don't really want to have divisions, but I assume we won't. But anyway, clause 1, members. We're going to put the question: is the committee content with clause 1 of the Northern Ireland Fiscal Council? So, are we content with clause 1 of the Fiscal Council? Bill, I should say. Now, clause 2 of the clause 2 main functions. I put the question: is the committee content with clause 2 as drafted? Content? Okay. Clause 3, budget assessment reports. Now, I will say that we did have a discussion on an amendment, and we decided not to proceed with it at this stage. It may be that it's raised another fora, but I'm going to put the question: is the committee content with clause 3 as drafted? Content. And I would simply say, just to reflect in the bill report, I do think that clause could be usefully enhanced and made improved in one particular way in relation to economic analysis, but I'm broadly content with the clause in terms of other matters, and we can reflect that in the bill report. So members, we're going to move on to clause 4, which is fiscal sustainability reports. Is the committee content with clause 4 as drafted? Content. Clause 5, power to confer additional functions. Is the committee content with clause 5? Power to confer content. Clause 6, how the council is to perform its functions. Is the committee content with clause 6? Content. Clause 7, consequential amendments. Committee content with clause 7? Content. Clause 8, meaning of certain expressions. Committee content? Content. Clause 9, commencement of short title. Are we content? Committee content. Now, schedules. So, is the committee content with the schedules as drafted? Content. Now, we get the question, I should just say, some of what we had hoped or thought we may want to include in the schedules has been reflected in what we hope will be an updated explanatory and financial memorandum. So we just put that on the record, because some of the discussion we had in that clause will be reflecting updated EFM. But I'm now going to ask the question on the EFM: is the committee content with the explanatory and financial memorandum as drafted, subject to amendments to, first, clarify the Finance Committee will be kept informed about the work of the Fiscal Council. This will include providing copies of reports, updates on membership or recruitment changes and other key information about the Council's work. Establish a formal governance agreement once the Council becomes statutory. After the bill is enacted, the Department Council will create a partnership agreement setting out governance arrangements, responsibilities and how the Council can challenge or seek clarification from the Department as they arise. Subject to those and the other specific things we saw in the EFM, are we content? So can I ask you, are we content with the EFM? Yes?
Content.
Okay. So we're going to indicate for the record that the committee is content with the explanatory and financial memorandum as drafted, subject to the amendments as detailed in correspondence to the committee received on the 9th of March 2026. Now, we're going to go to the long title. Members, as this is the end of clause-by-clause consideration, we must now consider the long title of the bill, which is a bill to make provision for the establishment and functions of the Northern Ireland Fiscal Council Bill and for connected purposes. I'm going to put the question, is the committee content with the long title of the bill?
Yes.
Content. So members, at page 12 of the table pack, there is a draft of the committee's report of the bill. The section clause-by-clause consideration will be added following today's deliberations. Any typographical or formatting errors will be fixed as per normal before it's put in the committee webpage. I think we'll agree that next week. So if any members have any amendments now, and obviously some of what we discussed today will be included in the draft report. Anything else members specifically want to be included, they can shout now, or indeed shout. You can shout if you want in the meantime, but it'll be in your updated pack. We're happy for that. Okay, we will talk about it next week. Now, agenda item 9. Thank you all. I can just put on the record. Thank you. I'm particularly thank to Fiona, who I think has had to do a lot of the heavy lifting on this, and indeed the bill clerk. I'm sure you will be pleased to see the back of this very important and interesting bill that we've talked about a lot. Agenda 9, Census 2031. It's a written briefing from the Department of Finance. At page 710 of the meeting pack, there's a written briefing from the Department of Finance on the 2031 census. The NISRA consultation aimed at gathering insights into user needs for future census statistics. That consultation has been extended to the 18th of March. It was due to close on the 8th and the 4th of February. A short summary of consultation activities has also been provided. Members, we sought this written briefing, so I'm just going to open it up for discussion on whether we want an oral briefing. I think it's probably good practice to have an oral briefing. It's one of those things that's pretty fundamental to the work of the department and getting information. So I think it's good practice, even if at this stage we don't feel any particular kind of urgent query, but it's worth scheduling at some point in the future. Members content with that? Yeah. We'll be getting an oral briefing on the timings. Agenda item 10, budget 26 to 29, consideration of evidence from other statutory committees. Members have been provided with responses from the following statutory committees: ERA, Education, Infrastructure, Justice, and from the Audit Committee on the scrutiny of the draft budget 26 to 29/30. Members, this committee would normally be expected to produce a compilation report, potentially with the plenary debate at the same time as publication. But the clerk is going to give us an update.
Yeah, sure. We have a number of those have come in. We have a few other committees have indicated that they just need a little bit of extra time, which we have said is fine. So Tom's already started drafting up the report, which will also reflect the evidence that the committee took from UUEPC, Pivotal and the Nevin Institute, and also from the Fiscal Council based on its assessment of the draft budget. So members will also be aware the status of the budget is the Finance Minister published a draft budget for the next 3 financial years and put it out for consultation. Consultation closed on the 3rd last week, and the executive will now go into further discussions around where they want to go with the budget. And we also have the open book exercise ongoing, and discussions coming out of that, and discussions around the reserve claim will happen once the open book exercise has been completed. So that's all very much the next couple of weeks. That's the kind of timescale we understand is happening. With a fair wind, there could be an executive multi-year budget agreed, not before the necessarily start of the financial year, but certainly before the estimates in June, one would hope. Dr. Aiken.
Just very quick, have we had any indication when the open book exercise is due to complete?
They talked about it ending, Chair, by the end of the month.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Finance Minister said that isn't necessarily an exact thing, because obviously the Treasury always has had access to the granular information. It's something that's produced by departments, and it's always there. What the time consideration that can't necessarily be pinned down is what additional information they might want to have.
All right, okay.
However, I think those estimates are probably reasonably sound, because they'll have been made by DOF officials and Treasury on the basis of how things have been done before. So you would anticipate that by April they'll be discussing the outcome.
Okay. So, happy enough for that, members. So, yeah, agenda item 11 is performance and culture of the NI Civil Service. At last week's meeting, the committee agreed to proceed with stakeholder engagement and call for evidence to progress our inquiry. Call for evidence was published on Friday 6th of March. The email at page 842 was received subsequent to that. The individual has been referred to the citizen space. So members, that's just to note and agree that it was added to the evidence base. At page 84 of the table pack is confirmation that an oral briefing on the next people strategy will take place in a fortnight on the 25th of March. The Deputy Chair.
Thank you, Chair. And obviously in picking up this report in terms of reference, it was coming on the back of Public Accounts Committee and the failure of the Civil Service to act and respond to a number of Audit Office and PAC previous recommendations around capacity and capability in the Civil Service. I was quite concerned this week to see a widespread Civil Service recruitment campaign be launched for 120 generalist DP posts that are about 48,000 salary, which is 5.8 million just flat salary costs without any additional per year recurring cost, just generalist posts whenever they have actually failed to respond to the central recommendations of the Audit Office and PAC report over very specific skill bases that are actually lacking within the Civil Service. So I just wanted to flag it. I was quite concerned to see it, given that all of this is so live and that we've got this inquiry going on. So I wonder, could we just ask how those things marry up with the ongoing responses to recommendations to around those reports without having an overlap obviously with the PAC, because I know we're sort of doing our inquiry simultaneous to them following up things with the head of the Civil Service, but I do think this is certainly within the space that we're looking at here, and I think that we should ask it. It's quite a substantial campaign that's out there.
Happy with that. Members are content to agree that, correct? Yeah. So anyone else want to come in? Now, we have the oral briefing on the 25th, and certainly I think that would be a question we would want to ask then. Members content we've got that on the 25th. Okay. Correspondence, agenda item 12, the NIPS report was laid in the Business Office on the 2nd of March. That's to note. 12.2 is Hansard transcript on the oral evidence session a fortnight ago with the Fiscal Council. That's to note too. Youth Assembly report is 12.3 from February. Not sure about that. Anyway, okay. So, members, we have a potential question about scheduling an evidence session with representatives of the Youth Assembly, specifically on the forthcoming marriage bill. It might be worth doing whenever we take evidence on that. So we will obviously do, I think, a call for evidence anyway.
Yeah, call for evidence.
So we can ask them
go
to
out. We're also, members have seen the initial list of stakeholders that will be contacted directly. And members, again, can highlight any others. Members made a few suggestions last week as well.
You're confusing the marriage bill with
sorry.
inquiry.
Well, am I?
Yeah, because there were...
Gosh, yes, I am. We haven't done that in the marriage bill yet. What am I saying?
What's this one?
So, no, the marriage bill hasn't been introduced yet, Chair. So, no, I'm talking about the inquiry. So I'm not talking about this. What I would say is I have already got into some level of discussion with the Youth Assembly manager around, they have a particular process they use when they're contributing, and they've now contributed to a number of bills. So we've talked about how that would work and how that would look, and they're hopeful then that they could come up and give evidence based on when we put out our call for evidence and particular surveying we've done. They'll also have a much bigger group of people who applied for the Youth Assembly but didn't necessarily get in, that they can also go out to their big sort of survey group to ask questions on this as well. We are expecting the bill to reach second stage after Easter. Officials have given an indicative of a couple of weeks after the Easter recess finishes, so we'd probably be looking at anything with the Youth Assembly going into May.
Okay. Okay, that's helpful. So 12.4 members is from the Health and Safety Executive. It's at page 87 of the table pack. It is a document on proposals relating to health and safety that touches on our work around construction. So that's to note. Agenda item 13 is the draft forward work programme. We discussed the Next People strategy in a fortnight. Yeah, I do know Clark wants to talk through all the other bits and pieces.
Yeah, the other one is just we want to carve out a session to talk about the Audit Office's capacity and capability report, just to give members a chance to really look at that, look at the recommendations, and do it in a session where we can have preliminary discussion about how we approach sessions with the Audit Office. The Audit Office, I think, have they confirmed a date?
29th.
of April. So it's really just preparation for that.
Okay.
Then we are pinning down an oral briefing on the marriage bill for.
The 22nd of April or the 6th of May.
Okay, so again, that'll be a
Lucky you for a birthday present for you.
Right. Want to make a note of that, Clarita?
Yeah, so
That feels like a cake moment to me, Chair.
what a way to celebrate your birthday.
So those are really the only things we wanted to flag.
Okay. Okay, members should agree that we will update the forward work programme. I don't think we have any new things we need to have in the forward work programme, but also that it's published. Yeah. Agenda 14 is any other business, Deputy Chair?
Yeah, thank you. Just two things. One, yesterday in the all-party group and volunteering community sector, we had talked about the local growth fund, and obviously we're at very much the cliff edge, 400 staff needing an answer in the next 2 weeks. We had discussed at the all-party group, and I said that we would raise it here, that obviously Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales, all the devolved areas are facing the same issue and are making the same engagements, and we wondered if through the Interparliamentary Finance Committee liaison, if that was something that all the finance committees would be interested in raising, because we're getting it at every, the executive have written in, the ministers have written in, our MPs, the affairs committee, it's coming from everywhere, and it was just one extra thing we thought that we would raise at finance committee if all the finance committees from the devolved nations.
I think the only challenge is I think it's a good idea, but they may be dissolved already because they may have gone into an election period because
Might
there's
be
no
next
elections.
week. I checked back on that, Chair. I think it's really, really close.
Okay.
Otherwise, absolutely.
Yeah,
but I
so
do think
it was just coming from that perspective of, the crisis is imminent, is there anything else we can do? So we said we would raise as an all-party group, and then Brian and I were there and had said that we would be here and would consider that. The second thing, this Saturday, the Forget Me Not event, did you circulate anything on that?
I will be doing that tomorrow, Chair, and I've got final pin down of details, although I'm still not entirely clear what a labyrinth is. But yeah, I'll put those out to members, and I'll do it with email and also with the WhatsApp group, because I know that's sometimes easier to pick up on.
And have we any sight of obviously we've got the regulations and things coming through next week for scrutiny, they'll be coming just through then in our pack. So that's good, coming through on the back of that
We can
event.
work on the tree and everything.
Thank
as
you.
well.
On local growth, I think I would just reiterate that it is deeply frustrating that we're in this situation, and that just exhausting, frankly, to be able to get a straight answer on what exactly is happening. And say again, if the department finds out any more, either via London or decides to make an urgent allocation, which has been asked for, then please tell us. And I think, given the pressure that these organisations are under, we'd like to be kept abreast of that. Okay, yeah. Sorry.
Just
for
with
your chair,
dissolution
so,
days.
so the Scottish Parliament will dissolve on the 9th of April, and
Okay.
the Welsh Synod will dissolve on the 8th of April.
So we definitely follow up
probably
that
have
action.
time.
We will do
We
that
thought
then.
it'd be March.
I think that makes sense. Yeah, we can try and get an action out of that. We're trying to get a joint. So was your suggestion then for an agreed letter between from the chairs?
If the committee's in agreement, it might be powerful to come from the three devolved finance committees.
To the Treasury? Yeah, sure. I think that's a good idea.
Just we have that for 'em, sorry.
Okay.
Just on that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, my understanding is I think executive are trying, all the ministers are also writing, and I also think any protest action, I mean, there's been protests by NICFA here and in Derry. They need to be taken into the NIO building in Belfast City Centre, who are the ones making these decisions. So I think it would also be good to reflect that as well, in terms of they have a big building there in the town, and that's where any focus needs to be as well at the moment.
Okay. So members, we will action a letter on.
Probably the fastest thing to do, Chair.
Okay.
We'll draft a letter and then
Find a way.
share
And I
that.
will just add that if there's anything more from the finance department, if they hear anything more, they plan anything more, we need to know about it. So members, if there's no other business,
But
yes.
no,
Sorry, Brian Kingston.
In terms of when we're engaging with the other committees for finance, I mean, I think ultimately we need to write to MHCLG or the minister for
I think the suggestion is we write to them and copy
Because I
in.
know, NIO, everybody's passing the buck on this issue. Everybody's saying, oh no, in terms of the 70-30 split, it seems to be MHCLG are the ones who have said that, and that's the thing.
This community volunteer said to feel that up here as well, to be honest, Brian. I think they feel
I know,
that something happened both
but I'm saying
locally,
that
given
I
there
do
was there was money that was, go on ahead.
But that seems to be where the 70-30 split has been made.
Yeah, well, it's a kind of combination, seemingly of Treasury and MHCLG. I mean, it probably makes sense rather than send it to the NIO, who are probably bit part players in this, to be honest, although it might make sense given it's the UK Department to, if people are, going anywhere in Belfast, it would be there. But I suppose in terms of this letter, probably to Treasury and MHCLG collectively. But the clerks will liaise with the other committees.
Assume that's what we were doing.
Okay,
anyway.
so
CLG.
15 is date, time, place of next meeting. The next meeting is here, 2 p.m, Wednesday 18th of March, 2 p.m. at the Senate Chamber. So members, the table pack will be issued a little bit late because of it's Paddy's Day, and I'll have a good break and enjoy it responsibly. I'm going to put the question, the committee adjourns. The committee is now adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
I'll leave that.